I remember thinking that there's just nothing good that could come out of this.
On January 26th, I got in a fight.
First thing I said was, you know, what's this guy doing with my son's card? And then they kept pulling out more ID, and it had Spencer McLeod on it, bank card. And then I said, you know, I could just feel this thing rising up within me, and I just said, what's this guy doing with my son's wallet?
Just, it was a major, you know, upscale brawl that took place, and so just getting out of there, you know, we took off from there. Went back to the apartment complex we were staying.
You know, at the same time, I could just, it was the weirdest feeling. I could feel my legs giving out. It was almost like I was becoming like two people, and I knew I had to turn around and really look at the body. And so I walked just a few steps, probably was, over to the stretcher. In my memory, it felt like a mile, but as soon as I saw where the blood pressure cuff had been on his right arm, they had taken the cuff off, and I saw a tattoo that his friend Jermaine had given him when they were 14 or 15.
I got a telephone call, and I had, you know, heard that two of my friends got stabbed, and so yeah, I said, oh my gosh, I got to get back there. And so what ended up happening is I took off from there. I went, you know, running back to the apartment complex where I just left, and you know, I went to go enter into the threshold of the door, and I seen just blood everywhere. There was blood all over the place, on the walls.
It was a very unusual looking tattoo, and I knew right away that that was Spence, and I said, that's my son.
So a few nights later, I picked up the phone. I was at my cousin's house. I picked up the phone about 8 o'clock in the morning, and picked up the phone, and I called Robin. And
I was having CB, my husband, block all the calls, really. I didn't want to talk to anybody, and a call came through, and I said, who is it? And he said, it's Jermaine, and I said, I'll take that call.
And as I picked up the phone, I just remember thinking, you know, that, you know, I want this woman to forgive me. I want her to understand the truth about what happened.
I took the call, and it was Jermaine, and he said, you deserve to know the truth. He said, I take full responsibility for your son's death.
You know, I felt responsible for, you know, what took place that night, and I felt the guilt and the grief of it all, and so it was all coming down. I felt suicidal at the time, like I was about to die. I was doing so much drugs that night that I felt like my heart was going to pop.
And when he said that, it just, my heart really just broke. I didn't really know too many details over what had happened, but I could really tell. It was almost like God kind of was shaking me and saying, you need to pay attention here.
You know, at the time of my life, I was just a train wreck. I was ready to just take it all and take my life, and you know, I felt no hope, and those words gave me an ounce of hope and what I needed. I
told him that I forgave him, but I also told him that there was a much more important forgiveness to know, and that was God's forgiveness.
She began to just tell me about, you know, how we can make a difference now, and God can change, you know, the whole scenario. You know, what happened to Spencer, you know, happened, but, you know, something good can come out of this, is that if I give my life to Christ.
I said to him, you know what Spence had wanted for you. And I said, don't let my son die in vain.
That hit me right to the core, and I never forget those words. Those are the words that, you know, catapulted me into the Christian life.
Pastor Campo gave the altar call. Jermaine was one of the first people I saw come down to the altar.
I came, I raised my hand. I remember just feeling like I was the only one in that room at the time, and you know, God was speaking to just me, and He's just saying, you know what, it's time. It's time to just give it up. Spence,
he became a Christian when he was almost 17 years old, and one thing that was really outstanding about him, really remarkable, was that he had a real passion for other people, but in particularly for his old friends. You know, in his mind, you know, he felt like, okay, God forgave me, and he just felt like somebody's got to pray for my friends. Somebody, you know, God can do the same thing for them that he did for me. If he could forgive me, he could forgive them. He went out, he went looking for his old friends. He told them about the change that had happened in his life. He really encouraged them to come out to church, and you know, when you look through his old journals and stuff that he kept, you can see, you know, prayer lists, and the name that probably came up more than anyone, definitely came up more than anyone, was Pray for Jermaine. He really had, there was something about Jermaine where Spence really, because they had been close, you know, when they were kids, and had been troublemakers together, and Spence knew that what had happened to him, definitely, you know, God could definitely do the same thing for Jermaine.
The memorial service, I remember watching Jermaine raise his hand, and that was a sign of him wanting to accept Christ into his life. And immediately I saw a great change in him. He used to show up to my house, knock on my door, and say, "Hey Murphy, you want to go to church?" And I'd be like, you know, hungover or whatever, and be like, "No, but I'm happy you're going."
I remember reaching out to Dave Murphy Jr. I was in service one day, and I was talking with his father, and his father was just, you know, he said, "I'm waiting for the day that I turn back and see my son come walking through those doors." And I remember just the feeling in my heart. It was like, you know what, I'm gonna go see to that.
He was very persistent in actually reaching out to me, and finally I remember telling him, "Hey, I'll go to church for you. I'm not gonna go for me, I'll go for you." And somehow, some way, God got a hold of my heart and my life, and it was mainly watching just the transition of Jermaine being reckless and full of anger and violent, and me coming basically from that same type of lifestyle and seeing just the joy he had and the change in his life. I really just desired that. I wanted that for my own life.
I was able to, you know, carry on Spencer's passion for people, you know, that he loved, and, you know, seeing them change.
Spencer was always a kid who took things seriously and had a burden for his friends. And one of the things that I found out later after he passed away, and Robin, his mother, pulled out some of his journals, and in his journal he actually said that he prayed for me. And, you know, that just really got a hold of me. Like, here was this young man who, you know, did have a passion to see me live a better life, to see me live clean and not be in trouble and mixed up in that type of lifestyle. And, you know, 10 years later, I've been able to be a part of so many great ministries and events to reach out to the type of kids that we were 10 years ago.
I look back over the last 10 years, and it's totally just mind-blowing to me, except if you know who God is, it can only be God that could do everything that's been done through Spencer's life and through his death.
There's a lot of kids like that on the Cape, and they need to know there's a way out, and that way is Jesus, and they can have forgiveness, and that's what changed our lives. It was the power of forgiveness.
10 years looking back, you know, on all the good that God's done, you know, through Spencer's life, it's just amazing, you know, to me, to see what he can do with an ounce of hope and the power of forgiveness.
I remember thinking 10 years ago that no good thing could come out of any of this, and here it is 10 years later, and it's amazing how many lives have changed.
Come down to the river, come and let yourself in. Make good on a promise, but never hurt again. If you're lost and lonely, you're broken down,